So now we're going to talk about some things that can happen in that A part of the ABCs of behavior, the antecedent of what happens before the behavior occurs. So these are some strategies that we can do to just try to prevent the problem behavior from occurring at all. So visual supports can work really, really well for kids. So some students need like an actual visual schedule. So you can take little photos and you can put Velcro on the back. And you can have like, this is what you have to do today. Here's your schedule. And then as soon as they finish it, they get to pull the Velcro off and stick it onto the completed side. And for kids that have anxiety or, are a visual learner and need that sense of predictability, that can be really, really helpful for them. And then if something changes on the schedule for that day, you can front load and say, usually we're doing literacy at this time, but today we have an assembly. So right here, we're gonna be, just so you know, today the assembly is happening here instead of literacy. And checking in with them in the morning about that. If a student has a really hard time staying in their area, you can put some tape down and say, this is where you're allowed to have your chair. If a student is having a hard time with personal space, you can do some different taped areas and say, like, this is your space. This is Andrea's space.
Nice.
If kids are having a hard time standing in line, we can make little dots or footprints to show space in between. What's a really nice strategy too is the first then. So instead of getting in kind of an argument negotiating battle with a student, it's first work, then computer, or first 5 math problems, then recess, or first write one sentence, then you can take a break and go get a drink in the hallway. But really just this really one thing at a time.
Yep.
Instead of 5 directions at once, just one direction, and then what's going to happen right after that we know that they want to do. And that can be visual or that can just be given verbally. This is just, a really cheap laminated folder, 2 strips of Velcro, and again, like taking real pictures with an iPhone and then emailing the picture to yourself and then printing it on the school color printer. And it has like their routine. So first I'm going to put my backpack away, then I'm going to put my lunchbox in the basket, then I'm going to write in my planner, then I'm going to put my math homework on the desk, and then I'm going to begin warm up. And then when they finish each individual task, it goes over to the done side. But you could make this, very individualized to what that student is needing. This is just another example of like some morning schedule. Google Images has a lot of great images as well, but I'm a big fan of taking the real photos of the real items.
Yeah, I like that.
So what we have to make sure that we are always referring to as well to make the, kind of the control battle go away too, is just referring to the rules or the expectations and the consequences. So it's really helpful if teachers of the different grade levels have rules and expectations that match and that definitely are tied into the school-wide rules and expectations. And it's also really great if we have consequences that are listed so that the student knows exactly what's going to happen if they follow the rule and exactly what's going to happen if they don't follow the rule. And then when you're redirecting a student, you can refer to the rules and you can refer to the consequences. So it's not that's just what the rule is. That's what the expectation is.
I like that. Yeah.
And if you need, since you are a para and you're traveling around the school, you could even just have something laminated with you so that you can always pull it out and just kind of refer to it with a student. It's also really important to have these rules and expectations posted around the school. What is the hallway expectation behavior? What is the bathroom expectation behavior? What's the lunchroom? What's recess? What's library? So these are some examples that we'll sometimes see. These would be for younger students that have visuals. There's noise levels, because the noise level is going to be different in the library versus the lunchroom. This has a lot of wording on it, but it's like, here are the expectations. If you follow the expectations, this is what can happen. If you don't follow the expectations, this is what can happen. This is like, here's a problem, and then here's a solution. Instead of getting out of your seat, think about your actions and sit and raise your hand. Those are really, that was kind of an example of replacement behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So these are really good visuals for students. These are some different ones that I've had pairs take around with them. So, voice level 0 when, Miss Adams is talking, raise hand to talk and wait to be called on, do your work and try your best, follow directions the first time. Those are their expectations when these are pairs that are doing more like literacy small group and going around to different classrooms. And then the consequence would be, first they get a reminder, then they need to move by me within 10 seconds. Sometimes it can turn into a battle if you don't give a time frame. So like a countdown, you have 10 seconds to move by me. And then we're going to move to the third step of the hierarchy, right? So you give them a chance and you give some wait time. And maybe for that student, they need 30 seconds. Maybe for that student, 5. You can kind of, your kids and what's going to work for them. Then the third option would be, if you're a para, you might need to get the teacher, or maybe if you're a teacher, you might need to get the para, or you might need to get the special ed teacher or the principal, and then a phone call home. So this hierarchy is very individualized to a school and what the school is telling you to do. So you would want to make sure you're following the steps that your school wants you to follow, but this is just an example. We also do a lot of like, what if I do, what if I don't engage in a behavior? Just having those really spelled out for kids. Here's an example of like some visuals of 3 rules: be responsible, be respectful, be safe. If they are not engaging in the behavior, they're going to get 1 reminder. Then they're going to do a stop, think, act. Then they're going to practice the appropriate behavior. They still are engaging in the problem behavior, they're going to get sent to a buddy room. If they're still engaging in the problem behavior, they're going to get sent to the office and a phone call home. If they are engaging in these behaviors, they could be earning class dojo points. They might be earning school-wide money to get spent in the school store. They might get an awesome note home. They might get an awesome phone call home. They might get a token to go to the office and spend the token in the little prize trinket. Then they're making their teacher happy. So these are just different examples. We really, really want to keep a positive to negative ratio. So for every 1 negative thing we say to a student, we want to have 5 positives. This is harder to do than it sounds, but we know in research that this is what helps. If we are being negative with a student, they are not going to work for us and they're not going to behave for us. We're going to create a relationship that's not going to thrive. So there's different types of praise when we say 5 to 1. So saying good job is still a good thing to say. That still counts as a positive interaction, but we want to get our praise to be as specific as possible. So social specific praise would be like, great job raising your hand, Izzy. I appreciate you waiting to be called on. Or I especially like the way you were looking at Sue while she was describing her drawing. Or thanks for coming with me the first time I asked you to and following my direction. Thanks for looking at me while I'm talking to you. It makes me feel like you're paying attention. Thanks for taking a deep breath before you told me that, and sharing with me that you're frustrated. I can hear you when you use a calm voice and tell me how you feel. Those are all examples of like social specific praise. Academic specific praise is more of like, you're correct, the answer's 4, good job, instead of just saying you're correct or great job or high five. Also like, good job capitalizing the first letter in your sentence so that they know exactly what they did instead of assuming they know what they did. Those are examples of like specific praise. And the more specific we can be, the more we're teaching them the behavior we want to see. We want to make sure that we have an attention signal if we're running an entire group or we're running a class. Like, do we say, class, yes, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or do we have a little chime? If you're working with a student one-on-one, this is not as applicable, but in this, if you're working with a large group or you're a teacher working with a large class, you have to have an attention signal that you teach your students and you reinforce so that you can gain their attention. We also want to make sure if we're working in a large class that we're using proximity. So if we're like just constantly in one place and being verbal, we're not going to get the same type of results as if we're getting close to that student to check in with them, to give them verbal praise, or to help them if they have a question, or if they're about to talk to a neighbor and then we walk by them, they're probably going to less likely talk to their neighbor. So using our body in proximity helps minimize a lot of behavior challenges. We can really get a lot of high rates of off-task behavior in the classroom. So we really want to increase student response strategies. We do not want everything to be just like a lecture where they're just having to listen. So we want to like let them work in pairs. Okay, this is what we're working on. We're doing 1 digit plus 1 digit. Now we're going to do a think, pair, share with a partner, or what is 3 plus 3? Thumbs up if you're ready, and everybody puts a thumbs up. So there's some kind of response, some sort of engagement. Everybody has a whiteboard and they're writing the answer while the teacher's instructing, and then the teacher says, okay, 1, 2, 3, hold up your answer, and they hold up their answer. Different types of silent response cards are another way that you could end up increasing engagement. Like if you're doing a math activity, you could hold up the number that you think the answer is. Greater than or less than, no, yes, false, true. You could be practicing multiple choice test questions, but you're having them find the answer they want and hold it up. So it creates this engagement with the lesson that then increases on-task behavior and minimizes off-task behavior and problem behavior.